Hi everybody, in today's video I'm going to give you a brief introduction to data handling. So the first question is, what is data handling? To understand this, we need to understand what data is. Data refers to information. It could be any kind of information. Sometimes it can be numbers and some other times it can be objects. Now data handling is a way of managing and organizing all of this data so we can easily use it in the future. Let's take an example. So suppose your class has 10 students and all of you are writing a math test for 5 marks. Then your teacher comes and tells you that there were 3 students who got 3 marks, 5 students who got 4 marks, and only 2 students who got 5 marks in the test. Will you remember these numbers later? You probably won't. This is why it is important to organize data. Now, how do we organize data? The simplest way of organizing data is in the form of a table. Now let us look at this table. The first column over here tells us the number of students, and the second column tells us the marks in the test. Then you can see that there were 3 students who got 3 marks, 5 students who got 4 marks, and 2 students who got 5 marks. Together, these numbers on your right over here comprise of your data. And overall, this table is basically an organized manner of representing your data. Moving on, let us talk about graphs. A graph is used to represent the data that's already been stored in an organized manner. So now suppose if you have the data in the table and you want to represent it, you're going to use a graph. A graph consists of an x-axis and a y-axis. Now what is an x and a y-axis? Let us look at this diagram. So this diagram over here is of a graph. From that you can see that this horizontal line is your x-axis, the vertical line is your y-axis, and as you can see, both these lines are numbered and both these lines meet at this point. And this point is called your origin. There's 3 important things you need to remember about a graph. First one is the horizontal line, that is the x-axis, the vertical line, that is the y-axis, and then the point where both these lines meet, that's known as the origin. Now you're probably wondering, how is it possible to represent the data from that table into the graph? To understand that better, let us look at this graph over here. So, as you can see that I have drawn a similar x and a y axis, and I've numbered them also from 0 to 6 over here and 0 to 6 over here. Now if we look back into the table, we can see that the first column of the table said number of students, and the second column said marks on the test. Similarly, I have written the first column under the x-axis, the second column next to the y-axis. Now, when I do that, the values on the x-axis represent number of students for me. So this means there's 1 student, 2 students, 3 students, and so on. And on the y-axis, when I'm writing marks over here, it means that this means 1 mark, 2 marks, 3 marks, and so on. Now, if you look into the first row of the table, you will see that there were 3 students who got 3 marks. Now we want to find the position of that value. So we go on to the x-axis and find 3. So 3 students. We find 3, here's the 3. And you trace your pencil along this line. Then you go on to the y-axis and you have 3 marks. So you find 3 over here again. And you trace your pencil along this line and you will find yourself at this point. Now what is this point? This point is known as the position. Now that position is called a coordinate. Now how do we write a coordinate? To understand that, let us consider this small graph over here. Okay, so we have the x-axis over here, and we have the y-axis over here. On the x-axis, our point was 3, so I'm going to write 3. And on the y-axis as well, our point was 3, I'm going to write 3. Then I'm going to join these 2 lines with the help of dotted lines. Okay, now we want to read the position of this point. So to do that, all you have to do is first trace your pencil along this dotted line and find the number on the x-axis, which was 3 as we saw. Then you want to go back to the point and trace your pencil along this horizontal line and find the number on the y-axis, which was also 3. So after you have written the point from the x-axis, you put a comma, then you write the point from the y-axis, which is 3, and then you enclose that within brackets. So this is known as your coordinate of that point. Generally, you can consider this. So this x is my 3 and this y is my 3. So the x is generally known as my x coordinate and the y is generally known as my y coordinate. So from this example, you can easily tell that this 3, the first 3 is the x coordinate and the second 3 is the y coordinate. If this is confusing, let us take another example. Let's consider this point over here. Okay? And suppose this point on the x-axis is 2 and this point on the y-axis, let's say, is 1. Might not be perfect, but it's just an assumption. Now to find the position of this point, we have to trace the line here and here. Okay, now when we trace our pencil along this line, we will see that the point on the x-axis is 2, so we'll write 2. Then we put a comma, and when we trace this line, we'll find that the point on the y-axis is 1, so we write 1 after the comma, and we put this within brackets. Now from this it's better, it's more clear that the x over here, the x coordinate is 2 and the y coordinate is 1. And this is the coordinate of that point. With this concept, we come to an end of today's video. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment down below and I will get back to you. Thank you and I hope you gained something from today's video.